You're listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast, hosted by Dylan Dillo Smith, Midwestern Ontario one and only MMA podcast, where we interview MMA fighters and voice actors like Sergeant Frank Woods.
What is up, guys? It is Dillo, and welcome to another episode of the Dillo's Dojo podcast. This is episode 11, and I just want to say before we start, happy Thanksgiving to all the people in Canada that listen, because I know, I damn well know there's more people in Canada that listen more than in the United States. So happy Thanksgiving to all of us. It's Thanksgiving weekend. I hope you guys are having a good weekend, and I hope you guys are staying safe. With family, hopefully, immediate family, people you've seen very often, hopefully, and have contact with. Do not go outside of that area. Don't go to large gatherings. It's getting pretty bad back here again. I know nobody wants to hear the COVID talk, but things are getting pretty bad in Canada again. Quebec and Ontario alone are, exceeding numbers. I think Quebec is over in the thousands almost, and Ontario has been kind of floating in the 800s recently, except for Friday. As of recording this, it's Sunday. Friday, we reached, I think, like 927. We were almost in the thousands, so it's getting bad here, but not in particularly where I live, thank God, but still, you got to be safe. Anyway, so I hope you guys have a safe and happy Thanksgiving. I hope everybody is safe and healthy, and I hope you guys enjoy your Thanksgiving, and I hope you guys just be thankful for everything that you got in your life. So anyway, let's get on with this week's episode. So we're not going to really talk about much in the first half, even though it was a big week for MMA in particular, and I will explain in a second here, but what I'm probably going to do is talk about a couple of fights on this last night's UFC prelims, because there was some good fights, and obviously there was one particular knockout that was the talk of the entire, all over Twitter, all over social media. Everybody was sharing it. People outside of the MMA space at one point last night were sharing the knockout. So I'm sure you'll know what I'm going to be talking about, but we'll get into that in just a bit. But first off, I'll explain what I meant in the beginning about how it's a big week for MMA, because I believe a year back, or maybe a half a year back, France just legalized mixed martial arts. They are now allowed to sanction mixed martial arts events all over the country. This is the first time they've ever done this. I don't think MMA has ever been allowed in France ever. This isn't like the United States situation where at one point MMA was allowed, and then after the first UFC event being televised, they started banning it all. No, I don't think it's just ever been allowed at all. Of course, you can train it. There's no outlawing training it, and you can go to other countries and get sanctioned to fight, and you can get a license to fight in other countries, but you cannot, promoters and other event makers cannot sanction fights inside the country. You cannot, put on an event inside the country. Well, that all changed, and there had been no talks. I think it's been a half a year now, if I remember, but there had really been no talks about events. And then all of a sudden, when MMA came back, because of, everybody figuring out how to do this with COVID and all that, events started to show up. Well, this week was a big event, or not a big event, but a big week for MMA in France. We had not only the Euro Series 10, but we also had Bellator 248, which took place in Paris. So we had two Bellator events, which took place in Paris, and then another event that took place in Paris, which was the MMA Grand Prix Paris, or something like that. That's what it was called. So it was a pretty big week for Paris MMA and for France fighters. Obviously, the Euro Series main event for Bellator being Tim Johnson versus Czech Congo 2. Czech Congo being a French fighter, obviously, so he was obviously excited to main event, and one of the first events to be put, one of the major events to be put on in France. So that was pretty big for him, and I'll get into that in a little bit and how the fight went. There's really not much to talk about, but I need stuff to talk about, so we'll get into that in a tiny bit. But Yeah, so it was a big week for MMA in general for France. It was just nice to see that these events actually did pretty decent. They had pretty good reception. Obviously, some of the fights ended up being a little amateur, like at the MMA Grand Prix one, but obviously you're going to get that with some promoters who don't exactly know what they're doing and they're just figuring out the laws and everything. But obviously, besides that, with the Bellator events, I say that, MMA in Paris is going to come a long way if they continue allowing this. Obviously, I can see the UFC trying to do something in the future with that when fans maybe come back, because that would be, I think, something more that the UFC want to do when fans are allowed at events again. Obviously, that could be quite a while considering we're in the second wave of COVID again, but we'll see with everything. But anyway, we'll talk about the two Bellator events that happened in Paris, the two first major promotion events to ever happen in France. So we'll get into that. Um, we'll get into the Euro Series 10 first, which was Tim Johnson versus Czech Congo. This was a heavyweight 3-round fight. Now, a lot of MMA fans, at least I see on MMA Twitter, they do not like 3-round main events. And I can see why. It's just kind of like a blue ball effect. You're sitting there like, fuck. I wanted a couple more rounds. I want a longer main event. I've been staying up watching all the fights for this moment. I want a longer fight, right? But um I didn't mind it. Either way, with these guys, they're older, obviously. It's better to have a 3-round main event for these guys than a 5-round main event. So I wasn't too sad about that. But the fight was pretty typical for both fighters. Tim Johnson used his boxing and tried to utilize his wrestling. And throughout the fight, he actually did successfully utilize his wrestling. But Czech Congo, obviously being more of a kickboxer, he let his hands go near the end of round 2 at some point. He nearly finished the fight, almost had Tim Johnson like done out of there. And it was just an all-around close fight between the two guys, and it was a good showcase by both guys. But unfortunately for Czech Congo, I was hoping for him because I was really happy at the end of round 2 when he almost had Tim Johnson. I was really hoping he would finish it in round 3, but he never ended up doing that. It was really upsetting. He lost via split decision, and that was pretty shitty for Czech Congo to just do that in his home country of Paris. But anyway, the other main event was I believe Michael Venom Page versus Ross Houston. I don't really know who Ross Houston is, but obviously everybody who's somewhat a little bit hardcore in the MMA space knows who Michael Venom Page is. You can either consider him one of the greatest strikers outside of the UFC, or some people, I mean, kind of including myself, sometimes I like his performances. But anyway, some other fans call him a can crusher, and that's a fair statement, but that's just all a matter of opinion. He fought in yet another 3-round main event in Paris, and ended up winning via unanimous decision. Just it was more of like a counter fight for him, and he just pretty much made Ross Houston look silly. But it wasn't really nothing exciting. But he ended up winning by unanimous decision. So Bellator had great knockouts throughout the entire night, though. I didn't end up catching most of the card, just the 2 main events mostly because I was busy both of those days. But yeah, I ended up catching both main events, and that's why I wanted to talk about them. But there was knockouts on the card, and there was great reception. The weird thing that I noticed when I watched, this was the thing I wanted to talk about before I get into the couple of prelim fights I wanted to talk about. Um, they allowed fans. They allowed fans, it looked like. I saw, at least when I was watching Bellator, like I noticed it first when I was watching the Euro Series 10. They had fans in the crowd. They had fans with masks on, obviously, and it seemed like there was like a couple of groups, obviously some people going with 2 or 3 people at a time in groups, they sit together, and then like a couple of seats between them are empty, and then like 1 or 2 people, and it just seemed like that. But they did have fans in the crowd, it looked like, and it sounded like they had fans in the crowd. Obviously it didn't sound like they had like a full house, because they can't, but yeah, for some reason, I don't know how it is over there. Somebody please enlighten me on how the virus is doing over there in France, but yeah, it was surprising to see that they allowed fans at the events, with the well, obviously with the masks on, but it just surprised me to see the fans at the events, because it's like this is the first time I've seen this since practically 2019. I guess February or like early March of 2020 was the last time I saw it. Maybe mid March of 2020, because of I don't know, maybe like one of the last fight nights that UFC did with fans before COVID really hit hard. But it's been a while since I saw fans in the seats, so it was just really weird. I've been starting to get used to this whole no fans, just being able to hear the corners and the fighters talk to each other and the leather being thrown, that type of shit. But enough with the Paris talk. I just wanted to talk about that because it was a big thing for mixed martial arts this week, where a country that had it pretty much outlawed the entire time that it became a official sport finally let it happen, and these events happened with some decent reception, and with the with a gate, a gate of tickets, obviously, because they had fans in attendance. So that was pretty awesome to see, honestly. Obviously we'll see how that goes. That could have been very disastrous in the long run. We don't know yet, because obviously it just finished. But I mean, like I said, it was awesome to see that fans were in attendance, obviously social distancing, but obviously, like I said, it could be disastrous in the long run. Anyway, let's get into the couple of prelim fights I wanted to talk about. We'll start with Giga Jikadze versus Omar Morales. A lot of people thought Omar Morales was going to upset Giga Chikadze, but the reason why I think Giga Chikadze was the favorite coming into this fight, because he was the veteran in the octagon. He's had a couple fights now, and he's been looking good in his last couple of fights. And I have to say, the people who thought that Omar Morales was going to upset him, I'm glad you were proven wrong, because no finish happened, but it was a very exciting, dominating, hard fought fight the entire fight, and I loved it. I am a big fan of this guy. He's a pretty cool featherweight, Giga Jikadze. He's a Georgian fellow, like not from the state, the country, and he's looked good in his last couple fights, and especially this one. He came into this fight 10-2, and Omar Morales came into this undefeated, and I think that's probably why people thought he was going to either upset Giga Chikadze or he was going to finally taste defeat. But yeah, Giga Chikadze is just on another level. He might end up being a contender soon. I can't wait to see him in the top 15. What he did against Omar Morales in this fight was incredible. He utilized his grappling and his wrestling, but mostly his striking was on point. Omar Morales, don't get me wrong, was trying to push forward, but Giga Chikadze was mostly pushing the pace. And then every time Omar Morales would push forward, he would either Chikadze would either eat the shots or get out of the way and make him miss so bad. And then Giga Chikadze would be able to counter. And I believe it was like the second round or maybe the third round, he dropped Omar Morales, I think like once or twice, with like this like really quick fucking punch. And it was great. Like, it was a great fight. Omar Morales showed that he has a fucking chin on him, though, because he did not, like, every time he got knocked down, he was back up, and he only got knocked down a couple times in the fight. It was mostly, I don't even think he got knocked down, if I remember correctly, but he ate those shots. They were snapping his head back, obviously, and you could see they were some powerful shots, but just Chikadze was just so dynamic with his footwork. He was just always out of the way of Morales and just making Morales eat shots, because like Morales would push forward. There would be a couple times where he'd push forward, he'd miss, and then Giga Chikadze would push the pace and hit him with these powerful shots. And I got to say, the heart on Morales is incredible. He did not quit once. He was still in that fight the entire time. He ate those shots with grace, but Giga Chikadze was just on another level last night, and it was like a clear 30-27 win for him. It was just such a great fight, and it's one of the biggest reasons why I'm probably going to be a big fan of this guy. It was a great performance by him. All hats off to him, dude. Honestly, I love Giga Chikadze. I don't know if he knows any English, but I'd love to talk to that guy sometime. He's just great fighter. I can't wait to see where he goes in the future, who he faces. Because, like I said, I think he could be up there close to the top 15. Man, like he's got some skill. Like he looked really good last night. So anyway, I'm done hyping Giga Chikadze up. We'll get into the next fight I was going to talk about, which is obviously okay. So the next three fights I'm going to be talking about are knockouts, but the first fight I'm talking about is obviously the one that I'm sure probably was gracing everybody's timelines outside of the MMA sphere last night. It was Impa Kasaganai versus Joaquin Buckley. And the reason why, okay, so I was excited for this fight. Before I get into the reason why it was gracing your timelines, if some people don't know, if you were kind of out of the loop, I'll get into that in a second. But I wanted to talk about why I was excited for this fight specifically. It wasn't the fight I was most excited for on the card, but I was excited for this fight when I was watching the prelims specifically. Like I said, I love Giga Chikadze, but this fight was the one I was really hyped for because I believe I talked about Impa Kasaganai on the podcast before because he showcased on week 2 of the Contender. He looked incredibly good. He was 8-0 coming into this fight because he got his contract. He got his first fight. This guy was his first fight. Joaquin Buckley just came off of a short notice loss to Kevin Holland, I believe, or something like that. And oh my God, I believe Joaquin Buckley was a very small favorite, but a lot of people on MMA Twitter were looking for Impa Kasaganai to win. Impa Kasaganai was expected to win. He was looking really good in his last fights, especially his showcase on the Contender Series. Especially, Joaquin Buckley's last fight, he got finished, I believe, by TKO or something. He didn't look really good, to all people. And I guess Joaquin Buckley was coming in with a chip on his shoulder of, I need to prove everybody wrong. I want to derail this hype train. So the fight was great. It was wasn't, exciting, but it wasn't slow paced. It was a pretty, kind of medium paced, constant striking battle where Joaquin Buckley would come forward not too often, but fairly often with these combos, and they were powerful. Every time he would come forward, they were powerful shots every time. And they were clearly hurting Impa Kasaganai, but Impa Kasaganai was still in the fight. He didn't get dropped once. He only covered up to get out of situations. He never got dropped once. He would counter. He hit Joaquin Buckley with a couple of good shots. He would hit him with leg kicks. He was really chopping down at Kasaganai's legs too, Buckley was. So it was like a back and forth chopping. And before I get into the next part of this, I just want to say I'm loving the fact that leg kicks are becoming a huge thing in MMA now, like calf kicks. When I look at it, it makes my knee hurt because I'm recovering from ACL surgery still. But yeah, I like the art of the leg kicks because it's a really good way to immobilize your opponent and slow them down. But both of them were hitting each other with these fucking kicks. And like I said, Buckley was just coming forward with these heavy shots. So it was just a very close round in the first round. But Joaquin Buckley was pushing the pace more, had Impa Kasaganai against the cage in clinches a couple times where he was hitting Kasaganai with some good shots. And then, the round ended. It was very close, 10-9 Buckley, right? So the second round, Buckley came out aggressive, but I don't think hit any shots in the first couple seconds because Kasaganai hit him with some leg kicks and put him at bay and just kind of made him hesitate. But it was just a constant in the center, them trading shots like that where Joaquin Buckley would hit him with like one or two shots and one would hit and it would be a heavy hit and it'd make him cover up. Kasaganai would hit him with like a body kick or something. And then, Buckley would, throw a couple body kicks every now and then. And that is going to lead us up to what graced everybody's timeline. So one of the many body kicks that Joaquin Buckley threw was caught. Well, I think it was a head kick. It came down, and when he threw the head kick, I believe, yeah, Kasaganai blocked it. And as his foot was coming down, Kasaganai caught his foot. It was his left foot, I believe. Or maybe it was his left foot. So he caught Buckley's left foot, and as he did that, Buckley like kind of hopped on his right foot, got in a position, and then like did this fucking cool ass hip spin. He did a spinning heel kick with only his right foot planted. He flew himself off the ground, used his hands, and fucking hit Impa Kasaganai right in the fucking mouth, right down the middle. And his explanation of why he did that, because, that was kind of like a risky move, but he explained why he knew it was going to work. And it was a great fucking reason because, like I said, this is one of the best reasons why a fighter has to be perceptive in a fight, because you'll notice these things, right? I mean, the fans notice these things too, but you'll notice these things especially. During the fight, Joaquin Buckley didn't really throw any any down the middle shots, right? So throughout the entire fight, every time Buckley would fake a shot or something, Kasaganai would always cover the left or right side. It was never the middle. He never covered up the middle. It was always the left or right side. He always covered up those sides. So, Buckley said, I sometimes drill that in training, and I noticed he wasn't covering both sides. He was only covering both sides. He wasn't covering the middle. So he wasn't going to expect it right away. And that's exactly what happened. You see split second when the kick lands, that's when Kasaganai, I think it kind of just like skids Kasaganai's like thumb or something when he goes to block or something, because he's too late. He didn't expect it, right? So it was a great knockout. It was fucking awesome. He on one leg, spun with his hips, used that leg. I think, like I said, I think he bounced on his he either used the momentum or used one of his hands to kind of help the momentum, but landed a vicious fucking heel to the mouth of Impa Kasaganai. And this was the best part of the knockout. Sounds gross to people who don't listen, I know, but the best part of the knockout was Impa Kasaganai's eyes immediately went back in his head. He froze up and just tipped over, man. Like, it was brutal. Immediately, like, the moment it landed, it was over. Joaquin Buckley ran away. He knew it was done. He didn't have to do anything else. It was such a great fucking knockout. And that being said, so we can get on to these next ones, I think it's going to be an easy contender for knockout of the year. A lot of people are thinking it could very well be knockout of the year. It was awesome. Congratulations to Joaquin Buckley. He upset the hype train of Impa Kasaganai and proved everybody wrong, and got a highlight reel finish while he was at it, and probably got 50 G's for it. And I'm sure he's probably going to get KO of the year unless somebody does something crazy in the next couple months. So congratulations to him. But anyway, we're going to get on to the last two fights because they're both KOs. Not too much to talk about, but Chris Daukaus, this was another guy I talked about on the Contender Series. He's just an incredible heavyweight. I believe the last time I talked about him on the podcast, he was on the Contender Series, and he actually ended up getting a ground and pound TKO in his last time out. Maybe it was a first round one punch knockout. I don't remember exactly, but all I remember, it was a knockout finish, and it was really quick. And it was his Contender Series debut, I believe, and it immediately got him a UFC contract. And going into this, Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira, his opponent, was looking incredibly good. He had already made his UFC debut before this. I think this was Chris Daukaus' UFC debut. Don't quote me on that though. But anyway, his opponent, Rodrigo Nascimento, was looking really good in his last couple fights because he'd been on he was 8-0 going into this fight, and he was on an 8-fight winning streak with I believe most of them coming by submission. And his last fight was a quick submission finish too. So a lot of people thought he was going to take Dawkins to the ground and it was going to be finished immediately that way. Well, that's not what happened, folks, because Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira tried to get to the ground. He got Dawkins to the ground for a second. Dawkins got back up, and it was back to the feet. And oh boy, it didn't last long when it got to the feet. Dawkins hit him with I believe like a 1-2. And then as he was backing up, hit him with another 1-2-1 combo. Or it was like no, it wasn't a 1-2-1 because they were both hooks. It was like a 3-4-3 or whatever, a 4-3-4, whatever you want to call it. It was like a left hook, right hook combo, and it just fucking knocked him out cold. 45 seconds. It was incredible. This guy is probably going to do wonders in the UFC. Maybe not top contender material yet, but he definitely belongs here for now. So honestly, good on him. I knew he was going to be something when he knocked that fucking guy he faced on the Contender Series out. He got his contract real quick. That being said, the last one is Tom Breeze versus KB Buhler. And Buhler is a native of Edmonton, Canada. He's a Canadian. And I was kind of hoping he was going to win, but obviously, the knowledgeable me knew that Tom Breeze was going to win this. And I was right. It didn't really last long. It started out strong for Buhler. He came out, had Tom Breeze mostly backed up against the cage, was hitting him with some nice leg kicks, some nice shots, just constantly moving. But it was like, I want to say maybe 40 seconds into the fight, Breeze hit him with a nice hook or something. Like it was a punch. I know that. And it hurt him. You could see it hurt him. It snapped his head back. He backed up. He had to like reset and figure his shit out. And then as the minutes went on, Breeze started to push the pace more, throwing more strikes as Buhler tried to push the pace as well. And Breeze just hit Buhler with a jab. It was just a jab that completely dropped Buhler to his ass on his back and made him cover up. It was almost like his nose exploded or something, and he felt like this sharp pain he had to cover up. There was nothing he could do. Breeze got on top, just started raining down shots quick. So it was like under 2 minutes, and Breeze with one punch just drops Buhler and finishes it with a follow a couple strikes. I don't even think he needed to do that. Buhler was like really covered up, man. I don't think he was getting back into that fight. That jab hurt him. The power that Breeze has in his hands, man, it's weird. But anyway, that was it for the prelims. Just wanted to talk about all that, especially the Impa Kasaganai knockout. My God, like I said, that knockout in particular is going to be knockout of the year contender easy. Like there's no contenders that are close to it right now. I can't think of any. Like you can think of fight of the night or fight of the year contenders because there's been many incredible fights, but no like incredible knockouts that you can think of. Like cool knockouts, one punch knockouts, stuff like that, but nothing like that. That is until we get into the main card, and we'll get into that in a bit. Because this was a night for knockouts. These three weren't the only knockouts on the card. The main card also had some finishes, and this was the night of spinning shit, and I love it. I want to see more spinning shit. It's risky. I know it takes energy. I know like it really wears a person out if you throw it and miss. I know that, but I want to see more spinning shit. Last night was awesome. I loved the spinning shit. I loved Joaquin Buckley's knockout. I loved all the spinning shit that was attempted. Giga Chikadze at the end of his fight against Omar Morales tried to do a Justin Gaethje like Imanari roll kick. I don't know what it's called. He like somersaults or whatever, or like flips and tries to kick you in the head as he does it. He tried to do that. Like I was just loving all the spinning shit. Just everybody was just trying spinning shit, and for the most part it was succeeding for everybody. I loved it. So anyway, I just wanted to talk about that and all the spinning shit that happened. Good on Joaquin Buckley. I hope he enjoyed the 50 G's. He definitely got the knockout of the night easy. There was nothing that really came close other than maybe what happened on the main card, but honestly, good on Joaquin Buckley. He's probably going to win knockout of the year with that unless something else incredible happens. Good on Giga Chikadze. I can't believe He had a performance against Omar Morales like that. I can't wait to see what he does further in featherweight, considering featherweight is such a stacked division. Also, Chris Daukaus in heavyweight, good on him with his 45-second finish. Heavyweight needs some contenders, so I can't wait to see where he goes. And good on Tom Breeze for finishing and upsetting KB Buller with that brutal jab. So anyway, I'll see you guys in the second half when we talk about the main card and the big main event, the big stakes with the bantamweight main event. See you guys. All right, so before we get into the main card started with a tribute to Eddie Van Halen, who passed away earlier this week due to cancer. I didn't even know he had cancer. I feel like this is another Chadwick Boseman situation where we were just like, wow, okay, he had cancer. But honestly, I was pretty hurt to hear that Eddie Van Halen died, and I was really surprised to hear that he had cancer. So I was really happy to see that the UFC did that little tribute to Eddie Van Halen, and rest in peace to him. And my thoughts are with his family and his friends. Surely he was probably one of the greatest guitarists out there. I think not in the like top 5, but he's definitely in the Hall of Fame for a fucking reason, and his solos are awesome. So you can't disrespect Eddie Van Halen at all. So anyway, we've got a couple things to talk about. Edson Barboza making another shot at featherweight. And obviously the main event, which is between Magic Marlon Moraes and Corey the Sandman Sandhagen. This is kind of title shot implications. It's like who gets the shot at the champ after Aljo essentially gets the shot at Peter Yan. Because let's be real, folks. Unless you want money, like, big fucking pay-per-views, and you want to piss off the actual hardcore fan base and everything, the fight that makes sense is Aljo versus Peter Yan, because Peter Yan's the champ. Aljo is the very clear number 1 contender, because even though Marlon Moraes knocked him out, he beat Corey Sandhagen handily by submission, and he fought, and that was apparently a number 1 contender fight. So he fought for that title shot, so he deserves that title shot. But anyway, this has kind of those type of implications to it. It's, I believe, number 1 or number 2 versus number 4 in the rankings. So it was a pretty exciting fight. But before we get into that, we had a couple more fights on the card, starting with Yusuf Zalal versus Ilya Tapira. Tapiria, I think. Tapiria. Is that how you fucking pronounce his name? Either way, I was really shocked with how this fight turned out. So Yusuf Zalal is a very good featherweight prospect, I think. He had some pretty good fights here in the UFC, got a couple of good wins in the featherweight division, and he was coming into this against a guy who I believe was making his UFC debut. And Tapiria, whatever, came and rose to the occasion. Yusuf Zalal, I was expecting him to win. I was expecting him to kind of make it handily. I thought it was going to be a finish. I thought, Ilya Tapura wasn't going to, survive. I was proved so fucking wrong in the entire fight. I was really impressed with Tapiria, whatever his name is. I was really impressed with his performance and just how he made Yusuf Zalal look kind of like an amateur on the ground. Like, Yusuf Zalal did pretty good when he was on the feet with his striking, but Tapiria even nullified that. He had incredible power beneath him every time he would counter. He was incredibly defensive, constantly moving. He was great at countering, and then every time he would get closer and Zalal would throw a kick or try to, he'd miss a punch or something, there's Tapiria with the takedown attempt, and there you go. Yusuf Zalal and him are on the ground, and Yusuf Zalal's struggling to get back up. I will admit, though, Yusuf Zalal had probably the best submission defense, I think, all fucking night, because Tapiria hit him with so many fucking submission attempts. Even in the first round, there was like 3 or 4 after another that were deep, and Yusuf Zalal gotten out of every single one of them. It was incredible. I loved it. This fight was really exciting. I wouldn't be surprised if it won fight of the night, despite it being mostly a ground affair. Honestly, though, other than those incredible moments where Yusuf Zalal got out of those submission attempts, that was literally the story of the fight. It was Yusuf Zalal trying to get back to his feet, trying to figure out how to utilize his game plan. And at first, he would be striking, but Topuria got into his head and kind of fucked his game plan up. And throughout the entire time, once Yusuf Zalal had Topuria backed up, all of a sudden he's grappling with Topuria, and Topuria's like, yeah, I'm down for this. Like, I've took you to the ground before. I had you in a couple submissions. Like, okay, sure. So that's what he did. He fucking would like pull guard, get him in a fucking submission, like in a guillotine, make Zalal fucking like scramble, and then during the scramble he'd reverse and get on top of Zalal. And yeah, it was just like that was the whole story of the fight. And like I said, a lot of people don't like watching grappling too much, but to me, that was really exciting. It was fast-paced grappling. Both guys were scrambling, but obviously, and it was very clear, Ilia Topuria was honestly the fucking most dominant wrestler out of that entire fight. That was the entire story of the fight. He won like a 30-26, 30-27 decision. So good on him. Tough luck to Yusuf Zalal, but I can't wait to see what Topuria does in the featherweight division. That's his UFC debut. He did amazing. I can't wait to see how he does. And, considering he might need a little bit time off, but not too much. He didn't take too much damage in that fight. He could probably fight in like the next month or so, and I want to see him back in the octagon soon. That'd be fucking awesome. He's pretty exciting, grappling wise to watch. So I can't wait to see him back in the octagon soon. Ugh, can't talk today. I'm just so excited because last night's main card was really exciting. It was like only a couple decisions, and it was pretty much a night of knockouts. I love it. That brings us into the next fight. The next fight was a heavyweight bout between Tom Aspinall and Alan Baudot. Baudot is a French fighter and, trying to represent Paris in its debut in MMA, in the MMA space. And that didn't go pretty damn well for Alan Baudot. It started out good for Alan Baudot. They were exchanging some strikes, and Alan Baudot was pushing the pace. But then Tom Aspinall started using his boxing and started pushing Baudot against the cage. And then Tom Aspinall started using his wrestling, took Alan Baudot to the ground, and then started hitting him with these elbows and had him kind of in like he was mounted on him, but had Alan Baudot laying on his side, stuck in a position where all Alan Baudot could do was just cover up and just eat the shots. It was elbows, punches, elbows, punches. And then the ref just stepped in because, like I said, Alan Baudot wasn't doing anything. He was just sitting there covering up, hoping that the onslaught would stop soon. It was like, holy fuck, please stop. Please stop. And yeah, no, the ref came in and said, I hear you, buddy. And just finished it, man. It was a really dominant performance. TKO mostly. It was a TKO, but quick TKO by Tom Aspinall. Really incredible. I can't wait to talk about the next one though. But I can't wait to see Tom Aspinall in the heavyweight division. I'm excited to just see all these new heavyweights, man. Heavyweight is so shallow right now. It needs more contenders. It's been one of the shallowest it has been. Obviously, it's not going to compare to the mid 2000 days where it was like Tim Sylvia is champion, but it's still pretty shallow. And I'm just loving all these new contenders coming in, these younger guys, showing how fucking great they are with their skill set. I love it. I just love watching that shit. But that brings us into the next fight. It was a middleweight fight between Marcus Perez, the man who showed his Joker face off at the weigh-ins, versus Dricus du Plessis, or what it was sounding like on the commentary team was Dupussy. I think it's like Duplessis or something like that. Duplessis. Dricus Duplessis was his name. And it sounded like they were saying Dupussy. So I'm going to call him Dupussy because that's fucking hilarious. But anyway, this, in my opinion, was kind of an upset because a lot of people saw Marcus Perez winning by unanimous decision. I saw Marcus Perez winning by unanimous decision. Only like 2% of the world on the Verdict app chose this fucking result. We did not expect it to happen. So they came in pretty aggressive. Mostly Marcus Perez came in pretty aggressive, doing his typical shit, throwing his hands, being all wacky, hitting Duplessis with heavy shots. But Duplessis was doing great jobs just getting out of the way of these shots and just moving and just, making Perez guess. And he was doing great at countering these shots too, hitting Perez with these great shots. And it wasn't, I think it was like probably 3 minutes into the fight. Marcus Perez came in, started throwing some shots, and Duplessis moved out of the way and then hit him with like this right hook or something that just rocked Perez and made Perez back up and roll, like somersault backwards. And Duplessis just didn't let up, ran after him, and just started raining down the shots at him, man. Like, just started eating him up. It was a great finish. A lot of people didn't expect it to happen. Or no, sorry. I just spoiled a knockout for everybody else. I'll get into that in a bit, though. No, his knockout was he literally hit him with that right hook as he was coming in and knocked Marcus Perez flat on his face, and then just started eating started raining down the shots, and it was over. Marcus Perez did get up pretty quick though, so good on him. I'll give him that. But yeah, no, that was such a fucking shock. I didn't expect Duplessis to finish him like that. Not a lot of people did. It was incredible. If anybody had Duplessis by knockout, you probably won some good money there. So good on you. But yeah, that was the second last knockout of the night, and I'll get into the last knockout in a bit. I guess I kind of ruined the knockout. I mixed the two knockouts together, but I'll get into it in a bit because the main event was awesome. But before that, we have two more fights to talk about. Obviously, I said Edson Barboza returned to featherweight, and we'll get into that in a bit. But before that was a heavyweight bout between Big Ben Rothwell, the supervillain, the guy who, excuse me, allow me to try this. He was in the cage, said some cheesy ass supervillain shit, and went in the fucking cage with like his hands up or something like that. That's Big Ben Rothwell. He's a great fighter though. He's a heavyweight mainstay. He's been in the UFC since like I think 2011. He's been kind of back and forth in the heavyweight division in the UFC, but he's been in contention a long, long time. So he's a veteran in the sport, but he was against yet another veteran in Marcin Tybura, who has been looking pretty decent as of late, but, has been wanting to get back into that contender spot because every time he gets up to like the top 5, he gets finished, but he wants to prove to himself. He wants to prove to the people that he can stay there. And so does Ben Rothwell. So this was an exciting fight. And I was actually excited for this fight as well because I actually love Big Ben Rothwell, as cheesy as fucking hell as he is. He's an awesome fighter. He's a great personality outside of him being the supervillain. He's actually a nice guy, I've heard. I would love to talk to him too, honestly, on the podcast. That would be a dream. But anyway, so coming into this fight, the start of it, round 1, Big Ben Rothwell came out pretty aggressive, just was pushing the pace and pushing Marcin Tybura back, had him on the back foot the whole time. And it was funny though. Ben Rothwell was just throwing strike after strike after strike. I don't know if it was him just throwing little tiny strikes to like connect to check his distance, or if he was actually throwing some power behind it. But apparently in the first round alone, he threw over 100 strikes and only maybe like 40 of them landed. But that did not serve well for Big Ben Rothwell, unfortunately, because he did continue to do that throughout the fight, and he did actually have Marcin Tybura on the back foot the whole time during the fight. And he hurt Marcin Tybura at one point, and he was really doing a great job at throwing those hands, man. He was quick and very technical with those combos, but after that, the first round, the second round, Marcin Tybura had his game plan down. He was like, oh, okay, I know what Ben Rothwell's doing. Started using grappling, started pushing him against the cage, kept his distance, would throw body kicks and leg kicks, and was just letting Ben Rothwell kind of tire himself out because in the second round as well, Ben Rothwell was throwing more hands, trying to do that combo shit, which is awesome in the long run. And had some of those combos actually landed clean and powerful, yeah, because Ben Rothwell has power in his hands, man. He could have put out Marcin Tybura. That's the thing. I don't fault Marcin Tybura for using grappling and trying to just, back up and keep out of the way of Ben Rothwell's strikes, because even if it didn't look like there was too much power behind that, there's still a little bit of power behind those punches, and they're all in combos. So if many of those land clean, it could fucking knock you silly, right? So obviously, I wasn't faulting him for that, but he played a very good game plan. Ben Rothwell was trying to push the pace, but Marcin Tybura was doing a good job using his grappling and his clinch against the fence, and was doing a good job just keeping his distance and just wearing Ben Rothwell down with body shots and just leg kicks, which led to the third round. And honestly, the second round ended up being Marcin Tybura's round because he was more active. I believe he actually took Ben Rothwell down at one point. He won the round easy. And that led to the last round where Marcin Tybura was pretty tired, but Ben Rothwell was even tireder. He was way tired, like way more tired. And both guys were pretty exhausted, but Marcin Tybura had the game plan down. Just let Ben Rothwell try to push it, keep your distance, and use your grappling. Just put Ben Rothwell into deep waters now. You're both in deep waters, but you're swimming a little bit higher than Ben Rothwell. Push him down farther, man. It's survival of the fittest, right? So that's exactly what Marcin Tybura did. Just kept his patience, played his timing right. Ben Rothwell was too tired to do really much anything anymore, and so was Marcin Tybura. So there was a strike here and there, grappling here and there. It was a pretty sloppy round, but it was a great performance by Marcin Tybura. He ran away with the fight after probably maybe a minute or two into the second round. He ran away with that fight easy because he just figured it out. And that's what a veteran fighter does. And Ben Rothwell, good on him for, trying to just, stay persistent. And he even tried to adjust halfway through the fight. It was just too late for him because he had already kind of started gassing himself out by throwing so many strikes. I believe it was like both of these guys were throwing quite a few strikes, but it was like more so the ones that they were landing, they were pretty equal with. But Ben Rothwell, he threw like at the end of the fight, I think like almost 200 or more strikes, something like that. So yeah, it was easy to say. I think he gassed himself out by throwing so many combos. But honestly, good on Marcin Tybura for figuring that out and playing that game plan out. And he definitely probably earned his spot back up a little bit higher in the heavyweight division. He might get his spot back up there in the contender spot. So can't wait to see that. But good on Marcin Tybura. And that leads us to the next fight, which is Edson Barboza's return to featherweight. Obviously, he had a featherweight fight before this against Dan Ige, which some people believed that Dan Ige won, but the scorecards don't lie. Even the global scorecards on the Verdict Act don't lie. The Verdict app even said that, many people saw it as a 29-28 decision for Edson Barboza. So, it wasn't a robbery or anything. Before anybody starts screaming robbery, I'm just going to put that out there. But anyway, I love Edson Barboza, but I love Makwan Amirkhani a lot as well. Both guys are very incredible fighters. Makwan is a wrestler, but you wouldn't believe it because he does utilize his wrestling, but he's also a great kickboxer, and he's very exciting. And in his last few fights, he's been really exciting too. He's been on a run, and in his last fight, he actually won by KO or TKO, one of those. And he was looking good. He actually called for this fight for a while. And I thought that coming into this, because he'd been calling for this fight for a while, and I guess the commentary had the same fucking thought as me. I thought he had studied tape on Edson for a while and he knew what he was going into. He had a game plan to completely just shut down Barboza. Well, that didn't happen, but that is not to discredit Makwan Amirkhani at all. Mr. Finland is a great fighter. He still deserves to be in the contendership in the featherweight division. He was, trying to get his spot in the top 15 and he failed, but it was against an absolute fucking killer in Edson Barboza. And honestly, I think it was the best Edson Barboza has looked in a good bit. And really way better than he looked against Dan Ige. This version, and everybody in the group chat I was in was also saying this. This version of Edson Barboza would have finished Dan Ige. it's it's a much better version of Edson Barboza. He looks more comfortable at featherweight. The weight cut, it was clear that because he made the weight cut already, the weight cut was a little bit more comfortable, and he was a little bit more comfortable with throwing his technique. He'd trained at this weight. He was a little bit more prepared as well. So it was a way better version of Edson Barboza. Definitely like a top 10 contender, Edson Barboza maybe. But I don't know because the featherweight division is so stacked, so we'll see. But definitely Edson Barboza looked incredible this weekend. This version of Edson Barboza was just great. Makwan Amirkhani just didn't have a proper game plan to use. It was good on him though, because he did actually he tried to push the pace a couple times, but it was more, you could see it in Makwan. He was trying to bait Edson Barboza into some spinning shit, and Edson Barboza wasn't eating it. He did throw some spinning shit at the end, but like I said, Edson Barboza wasn't eating it. He was just fucking hitting constant combos, leg kicks, body kicks, and if anybody knows anything about Edson Barboza, those kicks are deadly and they will hurt. There's just nothing else to say. Those body kicks are going to kill, man. So he was just eating those body kicks. He took a couple of punches. At one point there was I think the second round, there was a punch that landed. It was a nice jab that landed for Edson Barboza, and it busted Makwan Amirkhani's nose and just dropped him immediately. And Edson Barboza had a chance to finish the fight, but Makwan was really good because Edson followed him to the ground and started hitting him with some strikes. Makwan was just constantly, or no, he didn't fall him to the ground. Edson tried to sprawl and sprawl out and then hit him with those shots to finish him. But Makwan did a good job just swerving, staying out of the way of that, and just trying to constantly keep Edson on the defensive, grabbing at his legs. He did that very well, recovered, got back to his feet. The next round happened, and yet again, it happened again. Edson with these, like I said earlier, tonight, some fucking nice jabs Giga Jacatzi dropped Omar Morales, but this definitely happened. Edson Barboza with these lightning fast jabs, you didn't even see them happen. You saw him move his shoulder to throw it, but you didn't see where it landed. You knew it fucking landed because you didn't see it land. You just saw Makwan Amirkhani drop. It happened 3 times in the same round, which I think it almost gave Edson Barboza a 28 or 10-8 round. And a lot of people's eyes, it was a 10-8 round, but my God, this version of Edson Barboza was an absolute killer, man. I cannot wait to see him in the featherweight division now. This is a much more comfortable Edson Barboza. This is been in the lightweight division for a tiny while, Edson Barboza. He's more comfortable with the division now, so he knows how he can compete. And this was a much more calculated, much more veteran and smarter Barboza. And before I get off this fight, he also looked like a homeless man. And I loved it. I love that look, Edson. Don't fucking change it. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people like the bald Edson with the beard. I like homeless man Edson Barboza. Keep that going. That looks great for you. It's I think this is going to be a new trend for Barboza. This is going to be a new power fighter, I feel like. He's going to become the featherweight champion in a couple of years because he's just going to have a resurgence. And we're going to call him Homeless Barboza. And it's going to be like TRT Tour or something like that. Mark my words. I'm kidding, obviously. But yeah, a lot of people were laughing at Edson last night saying he looks like a homeless man. And I do agree, but good on Edson. He looked incredible last night. A great version of Edson last night. Like everybody in the group chat said, and I agree, this version of Edson would have finished Dan Ige. Not just gotten that close 29-28 decision. He would have finished Dan Ige easy. This Edson looked calm, calculated. He was countering and pushing the pace, choosing his strikes wisely, was hitting them perfectly with precision, and he played it very smart. He just had Makwan Amirkhani constantly waiting. Instead of eating into Amirkhani's bait, because that's what Amirkhani wanted to do, he just played his own game, waited, and hit his shots when he needed to, man. Perfectly. So that was a great version of Edson. Anyway, we're going to get on to the last of the fights, the main event, the big one. Marlon Moraes versus Corey Sandhagen, the 2 versus 4 bantamweight. This fight, I thought Marlon Moraes was going to win, but I was wrong. Corey Sandhagen won. But this fight was awesome from the beginning. Both guys came out. Marlon Moraes was just doing his thing, trying to push the pace because he was the shorter guy in this fight. For the most part, he is around the same size as most of the guys he fights, or he's a little bit taller. But in this one, he was the shorter guy because Corey Sandhagen was 5'11", and Corey Sandhagen did an incredible job utilizing that reach, in my opinion. He didn't get caught with any ground game shit. He was keeping Marlon at bay, and he was countering Marlon very well when Marlon would try to come in and close the distance, because that's what Marlon had to do. He either had to close the distance or initiate clinches for dirty boxing or ground game, because he couldn't do shit, man. And when Corey Sandhagen did get the ground game, there was a couple times where Corey Sandhagen could have caught Marlon in some submissions and stuff. So Corey Sandhagen did a great job last night, and that led us into the second round as Corey Sandhagen just kept hitting him with these nice leg kicks and body kicks, wearing him down. He was starting to hit Marlon with these counter punches and some kicks that would kind of hit the glove, kind of land, that type of thing. But it wasn't until the end where Marlon was trying to push forward, I believe. He was trying to push the distance as Corey Sandhagen was backing up. And out of nowhere, Corey Sandhagen throws a spinning heel kick and hits Marlon on the top of the head, makes him back up and somersault. And then Corey Sandhagen just runs in and starts making Marlon eat shots. It was clear as soon as the kick landed and Marlon rolled, as soon as Corey Sandhagen started running at Marlon, it was over. Because if Corey Sandhagen could hit a couple shots clean, it was over. Marlon was trying to recover. He was hurt. He was really hurt after that kick. It was a great kick, hit perfectly, on the button, dude. It was a nice kick, man. And Corey Sandhagen showed that, yeah, Aljo won, but he still definitely deserves to be in the top 2 spot. And after Aljo, once Aljo gets a shot and whoever wins between that, I think he might end up getting the next title shot unless he gets another fight. But I think he might end up getting the next title shot. That was a great showcase by Corey Sandhagen. It was like he took the guy who made Aljo dab. Like, he knocked Aljo out so hard, Aljo dabbed when he fell to the ground. He took that man, made him look like an amateur with his reach, and then spinning heel kicked his head into the next stratosphere and fucking ate him alive on the ground. It was a great showcase by Corey Sandhagen. I didn't want him to win, and it was a shock for me to see him win, but it was an amazing showcase. And that's why I said that this was also a night of spinning shit. And I want to see more spinning shit because that was fucking awesome. What fucking Joaquin Buckley did and what Corey Sandhagen did last night was awesome. I want to see more of it. But anyway, it was a great night of fights. A great knockout by Corey Sandhagen. Like I said, I definitely could see him going up against, probably going up against the winner of Aljo versus Peter Yan. As for Marlon, it's probably going to be a little bit until he gets close to a title shot now. I could see maybe another fight between him and a Sun Tzu, maybe, I don't know, maybe another Aldo fight, because a lot of people thought Aldo won that fight. Maybe Barboza might take up Marlon Moraes because he wants to get a little higher in the contendership. We don't know. I'm not going to play matchmaker today because I don't know who to put in that spot, honestly. I can't really think of any matchmaking decisions to make other than Corey Sandhagen versus the winner of Aljo versus Yan, obviously, because like I said, I think Aljo doesn't win, sorry. Aljo deserves that fucking title shot. He won fair and square against Corey Sandhagen. That fight was admitted by Dana White to be the number 1 contender. So whoever wins against Aldo versus Yan would fight Aljo as their first title defense. So there's been a lot of talk saying that no, that's not going to happen, and that Cejudo might come back. And now there's talk saying that Aljo is definitely going to be it. So we'll see what happens there. But definitely, no matter what happens, Sandhagen gets the next title shot after Aljo, without a doubt. That was a great performance, a great showcase. Maybe even in the meantime, Aljo versus Sandhagen too. Obviously, don't actually make it. That's just a suggestion. I want to see Aljo versus Yan first, but definitely, Sandhagen versus Aljo in the future would be a potential rematch that would happen. Maybe same result. We don't know. Maybe different result. Maybe Sandhagen kicks his head into the stratosphere. I don't know. But like I said, it was a great night of fights. I'm excited for next week as well because it's an even bigger fight night. This fight is, if it was title implications, easy pay-per-view. There's a lot of bad blood behind it, and I'm going to be explaining next week after next week's card because it's going to be exciting. It's TKZ versus Brian Ortega. This has been in the works for a long time. I can't wait to talk about it. I will see you guys later. Peace. One last thing before I go, I forgot to add this in the actual podcast. I'm going to start doing a show on Wednesdays. I'll probably make it like on Tuesday when I have the day off or something, maybe make it Sunday and then upload it Tuesday or Wednesday. But it'll be the Dillo Dojo mini series that I did on YouTube, but more so it's going to be just me talking about whatever I want. I'll think of a topic every week. It might be MMA related, might be gaming related, might be pop culture related. We'll see. But I just wanted to add that because I wanted to add a little bit of flavor for more people who want to listen to something different than me just talk about cage fighting, because not a lot of people like cage fighting, and I get that. Not a lot of people are as passionate about it as I am. So anyway, I just wanted to add that. I hope you guys have an incredible Thanksgiving. You guys in Canada, including myself, I'm going to be enjoying it with a couple of family members, just 2 or 3, because those are the people I see every day. Keep self-isolating, just try to stay away from big gatherings and stay safe. I hope you guys have a healthy and happy Thanksgiving, and just remember to stay thankful. I'll see you guys later, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.
You've been listening to the Dillo's Dojo podcast. Keep in touch with Dillo on his social media at Dillo Ross on Twitter and Dillo Ross on Instagram.